I'm recording.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out.
Hello and welcome to Koalatea Time, the KO Koala Entertainment podcast. I tried to cue Anthony to do the intro, but he wasn't looking, so I did the intro instead. That's me, Skylar Sokol.
I am Anthony Nicolosi.
And today we had an inspiration from the chat to talk about a specific topic, and that topic is cheating in games, and specifically anti-cheat.
Yes, because recently there's been a lot of news. I would say the games that I have been hearing about the most recently as Warzone and Apex having big cheating issues to the point that a lot of people feel like you can't even play it. So, Skylar, maybe we should give people a little background. These are both of those games that we just mentioned are not games that either one of us frequent. We don't play.
I've played both of them a while ago, but I never had any cheating problems. So yeah.
Yes. However, you do not only have you been a PC gamer for almost your entire life since you were a little baby in the crib, but in addition to that, you have some professional experience with pen testing, penetration testing. You're a hacker, a little bit of a hacker boy yourself.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk to your experience in that?
Yeah.
front?
So common misconception that Skylar is a PC gamer since birth. I actually was a Nintendo gamer since birth, and then my first game on PC was BioShock that inspired me to be a PC gamer when I was about 13 or 14, I think. So
there we go.
Just so you know. But anyway, so cheating in games has been around for a long time, right? From like cheat codes originally, which were like intentionally included cheats in games, to like Game Shark, for example. On consoles, some people may remember you like plugged your game, your cartridge into the Game Shark, and then it would basically do memory lookups of various because all the memory in these cartridges is static, so they would know the address of the byte that like determined your health, and so the Game Shark could just alter that byte to make you have more health or whatever. There's also more modern equivalents of the Game Shark, like Cheat Engine, which is something you can use on like Flash games to do a similar thing. And also on local games as well. But we are now in the world of online cheating in multiplayer games, something that, I mean, once again, has been around for a very long time, but as games are played by more and more people, obviously, it becomes more and more of a problem because it becomes more widespread and maybe more accessible for people to use. I remember, for example, Fall Guys on its launch, I don't know if you remember this, but it had a horrible cheating problem on launch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember. Yes.
And speaking of a game with actually no anti-cheat, it had none. They implemented some sort of cheat detection, but it wouldn't even ban. It was all manual review. They would only ban players after multiple things, and they really never. I mean, if you want to talk about a company that did nothing to make its game better from a quality standpoint, that is sorry, Mediatonic, but. Anyway, so Fall Guys had a huge cheating problem. Another game that people have complained about cheaters a lot is Valorant, which has what some would say is the most sophisticated anti-cheat of any game ever. It has a kernel-level driver that you install that boots before your hardware boots, so that it can get your hardware ID and use and be in the hardware to detect if you're cheating. And it has actually been quite effective. It has banned tons of people. I've seen posts where people have infiltrated Valorant forums where people were cheating and posted them all freaking out when all their computers get hardware banned, because you can't play Valorant anymore on that computer once you get banned on it from Vanguard. Yep. So there you go. That's the history. Now, you would think with Vanguard, a system that is in the lowest level of your computer, they'd be able to detect cheating fully, but that's not the case.
People can
There's
still.
still some, and there's like I don't know if people are aware of this, but there is an industry of cheating in video games. There is an industry of people developing and selling cheats for money for video games, and these people are like on the bleeding edge of like cheat development, basically trying to keep up. Every time there's a patch, they're working hard to fix their cheats so they can keep making money. Like, it's literally a business.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that we've come to a point where like someone's desire to do better in ranked in a game is enough to convince them to buy a cheat.
Right.
Right? And I think that's an interesting topic, and I think you could talk to that. What do you feel like? Why do you think someone cheats at a game? Like, not just like, oh, I entered a cheat code to be invincible for a while, but like pays for a cheat for a game and uses it actively, like in ranked. Why?
One answer is definitely the social one, and it's kind of related to the NFT discussion we had of, if you want to be cool, maybe your group of friends think you would be like the coolest shit. What's the highest rank in Valorant?
Radiant.
Radiant, like, if you were fucking Radiant in Valorant or whatever's right below that, your friends would just be like, damn, dude, I can't believe blah blah blah. I am sure, especially in the younger demographics, there's maybe an element to that there where you want to be somebody in your immediate peer circle, and so you cheat. I don't know, man. If you think cheating in a lot of ways goes against really what games are intending to are built to do, which is to build a compelling mastery path that helps the player little by little get better, and the satisfaction of playing the game comes from improving and gradually overcoming challenges of increasingly more difficult things, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting if someday we could find somewhere on a cheating forum or just someone in the Discord maybe who's used cheats before and talk to them about why they did it. I think that could be a really interesting conversation, because I do agree that there's some social aspect to it. Like, you want to be cool. I think there's also an insecurity aspect to it. Like, I think some people just like, are sad a lot, especially like in the younger generations nowadays. And like, unfortunately, one way people feel better is like winning in competitive multiplayer games. And maybe they're just like, I don't really care why I'm winning. If I'm winning, I'm feeling better. And so they do it just for that,
Yeah, that's what Sam is saying in chat. He's saying maybe because little Timmy is tired of getting shit on. I'm tired of sucking at this game and always getting shit on. I want to be better, and I want to be whatever. I mean, it's like, just that's why I made that point earlier. It's an illusion. It's false.
It
like,
is.
You're not actually better.
I don't think they care though. I bet if we asked a cheater, like, you do realize that when you cheat at the game, it doesn't mean you're good at the game, they would probably say yes. But right. The reality, actually, and I just thought of this, another reason I think a lot of people cheat, and I've seen evidence of this, is that they believe they're better at the game than they are and deserve to be higher ranked in the game than they are.
Sure.
So some people will cheat basically just because they're like, I deserve to be this rank in this game. I can't be this rank for whatever reason. I should cheat to get to that point, because obviously there's something wrong with the game that's preventing me from getting there, even though my skill level is better than where it should be placed. And generally, that's not true. Like, a lot of games' matchmaking systems are fucking horrible, and I will be the first to tell you that I think most games implement ranked very badly. But I think generally, even in those games, you end up at least around where you're supposed to be. Maybe not exactly, and maybe even like a whole rank off, but there's no way this like silver player who thinks he's supposed to be Radiant is actually supposed to be Radiant.
Right.
The systems, although they're bad, adjust for those kinds of large discrepancies. Just for a clarification note, Siren said that he thinks Valorant does IP bans. I will say Valorant actually does not do IP bans. Some games do IP bans, and IP bans are okay, but your IP is actually completely dynamic, mutable. Like, you can change your IP anytime. What Valorant does are hardware ID bans, which are tied directly to the motherboard of your computer. So to get unbanned in Valorant, you would need a new motherboard in your computer.
Yeah.
a lot of games just do account bans as well. Now, I will bring up another so I guess let's transition to the topic of anti-cheat. What is it? Why is it hard? And why are people feeling like these companies don't really care about it? So I think anti-cheat's hard because there's literally an industry, like I said, of people working to beat it. So every time you patch a bug, they find a new one. Trust me, working in cybersecurity, like if you really want to break into a piece of software and you have the time to commit to it, you will break into that software eventually. It's basically just inevitable. Just because software is so complex, and video games are one of the most complex pieces of software that get made. And so, like, of course there's going to be holes, and it's really hard to fill those in the development side.
And the other thing I want to add to that, because I'm also like comparing it, you might start thinking like, well, I know of other things that have improved security that used to get hacked. I'm thinking of like iOS jailbreaks that have gotten increasingly more difficult to do. One of the differences, in my opinion, is that games will not necessarily always build on the same technology stack from game to game, meaning the investment into sort of security elements of the actual compilation and obfuscation of things that might be able to prevent some of these hacks is not like getting built on from like game to game for this company.
Right. They might have to build it from scratch every time.
Or at least there's key elements that are changing. I'm just thinking like some of these, you might all of a sudden, maybe before you were targeting like hardware specs that maybe your game has now started targeting hardware specs that include SSDs, which influences the way that you are storing things in memory, which influences the way you're fetching things from memory, which means the game is going to fundamentally be built differently than when you weren't targeting those SSDs and you were laying out copies of things across the memory in different ways, meaning your memory. There could be significant technical deltas between games for studios that you have to address like basically every release. Maybe games like Valorant. I don't know how League's problem is. I don't know how
not a problem.
Is it?
Really.
But do they do the same thing? They do a kernel level block on it?
No, I just don't think there's that much cheating in MOBAs. And like Dota, for example, has an Overwatch system where people review replays, but it's mostly for harassment and not really for cheating. But I will tell you that MOBAs are much harder to cheat at. And that's because what determines how easy a game is to cheat is how much information is sent from the server to the client. How much information the client system knows that the player isn't supposed to know. So, for example, long ago, there was an issue in Dota where even though you had fog of war, that like basically if someone's in like a spot where your team can't see, you can't see that person on your mini map. But that data at one point was still being sent down to the player. So people figured out how to gain access to that data, and this thing called map hack existed. This was in Warcraft 3 days. So map hack meant that it was able to take away this fog of war because it was able to get the data for where the people were that was being sent to the player, even though the player wasn't being shown that data on the front end. So MOBAs in general, though, they require very little data to be sent to the player aside from what the player can already see. So it's difficult to make cheats for them. In addition, like cheats that help you hit your skill shots aren't really that big a deal because the skill shots in those games aren't really that hard to hit. So like it's not like it's that bad of a problem. FPS is a way bigger problem because you have these huge long field of views. You need in Warzone, you need to be able to see a player like any distance from you. Right? So the system has to give your computer all the data about basically where any player you could possibly see is guaranteed, even if you can't visually see them easily. So you have that data already, so it's hard to prevent someone from, say, take that data and draw a little red square on the scene whenever there's data for a player. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that makes it really difficult. FPS is honestly, in my opinion, the hardest genre to do anti-cheat for, and it's also one of the most popular genres of video games, right?
Yep. Yeah, the games we mentioned at the beginning, all FPSs. Joe actually talked to this when he was on the podcast a couple weeks ago when he was talking about the difficulty of staying on top of anti-cheats. Again, just wanted to reinforce like what you were saying. There are there are financial motivations for some parties to continue to develop these anti-cheats. So like they're not necessarily, you're almost working against professional organizations in a way. Professional professional cheaters, hackers,
right. They are
right?
basically professional groups who are like, their business is making these hacks. Their livelihood is hinging on their ability to make hacks for games.
Yes. And figuring out on the fly how to dynamically, it is, I don't know what, there's a lot of technical detail that goes into being able to address these, even maybe to some extent identifying the hack itself, maybe in some cases. It's not trivial to fix these bugs, and it's not always trivial is maybe what I should say. And you can't, yeah, it's not an easy thing to solve. It's not an easy thing to solve.
I agree it is difficult to solve, but I'm not here to just like preach that you guys should chill the fuck out about anti-cheat, because I will say that there's a huge lack of cybersecurity focus in the video game space, and there used to be a huge lack of cybersecurity focus in the tech space in general. It's only in the past like 10 years that even companies like Apple and Google and these companies have been ramping up their cybersecurity immensely and like hiring people to do cybersecurity focused work on their products, right? Like they need to be putting resources towards it in order to fix these things. And video game companies, their margins, like as we've talked about many times, video game company margins aren't as good as those other companies, so they may not have the resources to dedicate like a dedicated cybersecurity team to each of their games, right? So like, I think they should. Like, I think companies do need to budget for cybersecurity in games more, especially these large multiplayer companies. But it's really hard. Like you saw with Vanguard, Riot was like, yeah, we're going to take anti-cheat really seriously. And everyone was fucking pissed. They're like, why are you installing something that has to have hardware level access to my computer? But at the same time, we have everyone complaining that these other games don't do anything about anti-cheat. So like, it's a fine line to balance. Now, Samwise asks in the chat if it's illegal to sell hacks. So when you start playing a game, you agree to the EULA of the game and other things like that. And those things do tell you that you generally have clauses in them that tell you you're not allowed to alter the game or whatever. But the legality, I'm not sure. Basically, it just gives the developers the right to ban you. And I think they could potentially pursue legal action against like hack developers or cheaters. But the costs of doing that, I can't imagine is worth it for them. You know what I mean? What do you think about that? Because it is technically illegal. It violates the EULA that you sign at the beginning of the game.
Well, the thing I'm thinking in my head is applying the hack is illegal, but selling it, you know what I mean?
Well, because it talks about intentionally altering the game in ways and stuff like that, which they do in order to make the hack, right? So even creating the hack would be illegal.
No, maybe.
It's like you technically void your warranty if you open up your iPhone or whatever. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I'm talking out of my ass on that one because I'm not sure.
As far as I know from what I've seen in cybersecurity lawsuits and stuff like that, that would be the case.
Okay.
We can get my friend Gabe on the podcast, who's a computer science lawyer, basically, and he could tell us.
That'd be interesting. So what do you think the way that Riot's approaching Valorant is the way to deal with FPS cheats?
Well, so I, for one, have no problem with having Vanguard on my computer. You can disable it whenever you want. It'll only start on startup if you tell it to. It's not like it's that invasive. The main problem with Vanguard is that it does fuck up a bunch of other games and programs on your computer. Like Rollick, one of our good friends of the company, his like fan control program for his PC triggered Vanguard's anti-cheat, so it wouldn't let him open Valorant if he had that program open. It's also like
mine was fucked for a while.
Your Vanguard was fucked. It like wouldn't work at all. I've had it like make other games perform worse. So there's some issues with that, but granted, it's the first anti-cheat of its kind ever, right? So like they're working out the kinks. I think if they can get something streamlined like that, I think it's great. I personally, like, I hate Smurf accounts, and hackers are like one level worse than Smurf accounts, right? I think that Smurf accounts should get hardware banned too. So, like, of course, I think hackers should be. And And I was going to say, I have one other mention of Rollick. He has told me his conspiracy theory before about cheating in games and anti-cheat. And his thought is that companies don't really give a shit about anti-cheat, just like they don't give a shit about smurfing, because people are still buying additional copies of the game. So they don't really fucking care.
Yeah, but like, what about these free-to-play games? I mean, like, you know, especially with Smurfs and stuff, especially when the games are paid, like, I'd agree there's a financial incentive to allow it to happen.
Well, I mean, if
These
you
other
ban a
ones-
Valorant account and it has a bunch of skins, they're probably going to buy skins again when they create their next cheater account.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking that maybe the reason why more resources aren't put towards something like this is because there's a financial incentive not to, or not enough of a financial incentive to do it.
Yeah. I think if people stop playing the games as a result, which is what I've seen, at least in chat, people have been talking about how Warzone has lost a lot of players, that could potentially motivate the company to actually do something about it.
Right.
I don't know. I just want to talk about a quick thing that was said in chat earlier by Majin Titan. He was talking about how, what do we think about people cheating in games, like, for example, getting adapters to plug keyboard and mouse into console to play keyboard and mouse and FPS on console. You are closer to console than me. How would you feel if you were in a Halo game and you knew that someone was like fucking you up because they were playing on keyboard and mouse?
I mean, if they were fucking me up, I'm not sure. I might be tilted, but I usually shit on the keyboard and mouse people. So like usually the controller people, like, here's the thing. I don't know how it works. If you put in an adapter like that, if a keyboard and mouse person got aim assist, then we'd be fucked, you know, like,
sure,
if that makes sense. The controllers get a lot going for them, and that's part of the reason why we can, like, compete on some of those things.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know. You know, in my opinion, the Halo 2, especially back in the day, had people would do, they would do some cheats. Yeah, there were mods, but there was also, like, I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically like you fuck with your router to, like, become,
lag switching people.
Yes.
People do that in fighting games in the modern day all the time.
And so that's annoying. Like, that's like, come on, you fucking, like, whatever. Some people consider, you know, just because you have me thinking about it, there were these, like, button combos in Halo that were, like, basically a bug that people felt like were cheats, but you could do consistently. They were, and I was fine with that. Like, if somebody came in and was like, you know, I was like, okay, like, it's almost like a skill. What's it called? Fucking, it heightened the skill ceiling. You
Sure,
gotta, like, know
sure.
the
But that is
whatever.
something that was available to everyone always, right? I think that's
Right.
really the barrier for cheating in my mind, right? It goes for, like, when you go from something that is available to everyone, like, for example, a bug in a game is usually everyone can exploit it if they want to. And granted, I believe that should be fixed generally, but I don't consider that cheating, because everyone has access to it. But the second you're doing something that not everyone has access to, for example, using a third-party program to cheat, that's where it becomes a problem in my mind. That's where it becomes a major issue.
Right.
I will say this peripheral discussion is interesting with keyboard and mouse on console, because there's actually a big discussion about this in the fighting game community. Because, you know, most people in fighting games, at least traditionally, use either a controller, right, just a normal controller, or they use a fight stick, which I'm showing on stream now, which looks like this, right? It has an arcade stick and buttons. Recently, though, a controller called the Hitbox was invented. And it is essentially a fight stick, but instead of a joystick, it has buttons, similar to, like, a keyboard, basically. So your joystick is controlled by buttons. And now people are fine with that. Granted, it does give you, like, faster movement, right? Pressing a button is faster than moving a stick down. So it does give you a slight, maybe, but possibly imperceptible advantage. But there's a separate Hitbox controller called the Cross Up. And that one had the buttons like a keyboard on the left, and also buttons surrounding the right buttons that also could be rebound to those left buttons. So you essentially had 2-button access to movement keys, and that actually, those controllers are banned in almost all fighting game tournaments. And
Just
like
because they're too OP?
because they don't like getting two buttons that do the same thing in a fighting game can actually change things significantly.
Sure.
It gives you a significant advantage, which is interesting, right? Where you draw the line for like a game that uses peripheral controllers. When does it suddenly become wrong to use a controller that's readily available, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably just say I don't feel like there's a blanket. That's probably a pretty contextual thing depending on the game and
Right.
community that you're sort of dealing with.
It's
Competitive community, casual community, they might have different tolerances on that front. Yeah, one thing that keeps coming up in chat is this idea of like cheating somehow enables games to be easier, and we talked about skill-based matchmaking, how that can, especially bad implementations of that, can make it even harder to feel extremely empowered one game and just like kick ass. I keep seeing that like come up in social media. People want the ability to have this like to just like shit on people.
You want my opinion on this shit. Like those people can honestly go fuck themselves, first of all. And second of all, like if they really want to do shit like that, they should just play against bots.
Well, okay, so that's what actually I was going to. Is like, what do you think it would scratch the same itch?
No, absolutely not. These are people who are like super insecure and want to feel like they're better than other humans so they can feel better about themselves.
Bang. Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think it's going to scratch the same itch for them to like, oh, I shit on a bunch of bots.
Literally, those people have the same motivations as the cheaters we're discussing. Literally the same motivations. Yep. They're just accomplishing it through a technically allowed way, but that doesn't mean it's not the same shitty thing to do.
Right. I think, what would be interesting is if you could detect somebody smurfing and or hacking or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this is a good idea and this is how you solve this problem, but it'd be interesting to like silently next time they queue, put them in a lobby with bots and they just think they're with people, but they're just getting botted the whole time.
I don't know if you know this, but what was it, Fall Guys? Yeah, it was Fall Guys. So Fall Guys initially, when they had the cheating wave, before they were confident in their anti-cheat system, instead of banning people, they would move them into a queue that only put them with other cheaters. And so and they had like videos, they posted them on Twitter of like the lobby that was literally just like 100 cheaters basically, and they would just play with cheaters. And actually Dota has implemented a similar thing called low priority queue, where if you are harassing people, this is more for like negative behavior than cheating.
Right.
You can get if you get reported too much, you'll get put in low priority queue. And then you only play with other people in that queue. And in fact, Dota recently made a big change to low priority queue. You used to just have to like play 10 games to get out of it, basically, or however many games they put you in. But they noticed that people would just throw games and just do bullshit to like get through it, right? So they made it so you have to win every game that you're prescribed to. So you have to like win 10 games in low priority queue to get out.
So yeah, okay.
So now that's like a real punishment. Like that's fucking crazy.
No,
like,
I'm a fan. Of that,
me too. I think it's one of the best like systems for trying to help players like actually get punished in a good way and potentially make them want to do better in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just imagining those Fall Guy cheater lobbies with fucking everyone flying in the air in those stupid ass hot dog suits.
Yo.
God. Right on. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, no, I think that was I guess one more question from Siren in the chat. He's just saying, what are our thoughts on scuffed controllers or like Xbox Elite controllers? Because they do technically give you an interesting potential advantage, right? Like the paddles on the Elite controller are like on my Razer controller, right? Like technically they are giving you an advantage by giving you more options, more buttons, whatever. What do you where's the line where that would become cheating? Like some people think like turbo button, for example, is cheating. This is sort of like maybe along those lines.
I mean, the conversation we had earlier about the hitbox, right? That's the name of this one that got banned.
It's the cross up. It's like a version of the hitbox, which is not what got banned.
Like I hadn't thought about it, but I could definitely I could map the back paddle to Y and have the Y face button and be able to do kind of a similar
press Y way faster than someone who only has one button, right?
For me, I use the Elite controller exclusively, and
So you're a dirty cheater.
right, yeah, I use it because I don't. I guess like for me, the reason why I feel like they're a little different is because, especially when you're playing like an FPS, the reason why I use paddles exclusively is because it prevents me from having to ever take my thumbs off of the thumbsticks,
Right.
which in FPS on controller is important.
So is that an unfair advantage?
I don't know. Like, should I then thus also prevent people from clawing? Right? Because like the people who claw in Halo will fucking shit
Yeah, and
on
I
you
claw.
more.
I claw in all games. Honestly, I use claw grip almost all the time. Rocket League, I play claw grip.
So like you know, like do
Yeah.
I prevent them from clawing?
Right.
Because like some of the Halo pros, if you see my controller, they'll have like this finger will like deal with all the face.
This is how I play Rocket League. Literally like this.
Yeah. And then they'll have these two fingers on the triggers and the bumper like that. And it's like, it's insane, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Sam's saying playing claw sucks balls. Yeah. It's why I got paddles. I was like, God, I don't want to learn how to fucking claw. This is uncomfortable as shit. And I just want paddles. So
now, Siren says it seems like pay to win, which I think is kind of reasonable, right? It is like putting a price barrier on something that potentially gives you an advantage. Like you could definitely argue that.
But I mean, like, is buying better cleats than the other guy a pay to win scenario? And I feel like if
they give you a perceptible advantage, I would say yes.
But I think I don't know. I think if like it fundamentally doesn't really change your input into the game, it's not a problem. Like the double button thing that you were talking about, I could see being a problem. For example, if there was a glitch in Halo where if you could press jump twice fast enough, and like that, the main way people could do it is by mapping one of the paddles and then double tapping it against the face button and being able to do it. I could see that being too far, because then you almost require that hardware to be able to pull off execution at that level.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's a perceptible advantage, like, what if someone found something that you needed to be able to hit so many buttons on the controller, for example, that it's only possible to do with an Elite controller?
Yeah, that would
right.
That would be not be
then
fair.
Right. Then suddenly it would become the line is so blurry for that kind of stuff. It's really complex, honestly, to make a decision on whether that is cheating or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is cheating. Now I think we have a patron question.
We do, from Mr. Squid.
Would you like to read it?
Yeah, he says, how do you think 343 is going to make money off Halo Infinite, since it's going to be free? And as far as I'm aware, the only thing you can buy with real money is their battle pass.
Our boy Squid needs to read the articles more carefully.
I mean, I think 343 is going to make money off of Halo Infinite two ways. The battle pass is one system. One way that they're monetizing the multiplayer. The other way is there's going to be similar to, I think Titanfall 2 is the one that I'm thinking here, does it. They have like packs of cosmetics available, and before you purchase the packs, it shows you exactly what's inside the pack, what skins, what armor, whatever you're going to get. It's not RNG based. It's
like Valorant, where you're just buying skins.
Right.
Yeah. But
because you see your skins before you buy them.
Yeah. You know exactly what you're buying.
Yeah.
But it is also like the elephant in the room, right? He doesn't say multiplayer. The campaign in Halo Infinite costs money.
Yep. So that was the other thing I was going to say. Halo Infinite's campaign will be sold separately. We don't know what the price is yet.
What's your prediction?
I guess I based off of the scale of it, I'm going to think it's probably 60.
Okay, I was gonna say 40, but you're going. It's gonna be basically a full price game.
I initially thought 42, but then I'm looking at the campaign and sort of the scope of it, and I'm like, I could see this being a full 60, because a normal, like, if you think Halo 5's campaign, which is like kind of a linear 6-hour thing, if you're good, that's a 40.
Right.
In my opinion, and that's what I was thinking originally. But now with the increased scope of the world and scale of the story, I don't think we're looking at a 6 to 8 hour campaign.
Right.
I think we're looking at something north of 12.
I mean, if it's like basically a full-fledged narrative-based single-player game, like They would essentially be selling it as a separate game from the multiplayer, and thus I could see them justify charging like near full price for the game, for the campaign.
Yep. But we still don't know.
Yeah,
so
that'll be
I
interesting
think those
to
are going to
see.
be the two ways. I think this is great, man, for Halo as a side thing. Squid doesn't ask this, but
Anthony's got to do some Halo evangelizing though at the end of the podcast.
This monetization strategy, this financial setup, financial model is so good because the campaign has to be good on its own to sell. And the multiplayer has to be good in order for people to want to invest money into it. You know what I mean? Those previously Halo games could sort of mooch off of each other. Like, for example, the Halo 5 campaign was ass. The story was ass. If they would have been sold separately, the first week people would have played it and been like, this campaign fucking sucks, don't buy it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they kind of like complement each other and justified the full price previously. So I think it's so good. It puts pressure on the game being actually good, both sides of the game being actually good. Saw the multiplayer reveal, saw them actually playing games today. I'm so super fucking hyped, super hyped for the campaign too. If it capitalizes on the vision that they're communicating so far with what we've seen of the story, oh, I'm so excited.
I think that was an interesting insight. Like the previous Halos, really, the multiplayer had to be worth $30 and the campaign had to be worth $30, basically, right? In a way. Right. And now, if they're selling that campaign for $60, that shit had better be worth $60, right? No, I think that's a great point. It honestly, this monetization platform makes you increase the quality of both aspects of the game. That's totally true.
Yep, I'm hyped for what that will look like. So,
all right. Well, thanks for listening. Where can people find us?
You can find us at koalaentertainment.com. There you have links to all our social media. Most importantly, Discord. Really, most importantly, Discord. The patrons already have a little bit of a tease why, but over the next couple of weeks, big things are happening starting in the Discord. You'll hear a lot more about it wherever you follow us on social media. Trust me. And it's just the beginning.
I didn't see this post. Let's see. Oh, okay.
What post?
Your teaser post. I see it now.
Yeah. So, stay tuned. This is going to be an exciting month.
Ooh.
Sub with Prime Links, Pota says. Yes, I mean, we have communicated before. There will be rewards coming for our Twitch subs. There have been higher priority things for the studio that caused us to deprioritize effort into implementing those Twitch rewards, but they are coming. People are going to get some cool stuff. We do giveaways everywhere. I'll finish it with that. We do giveaways on Instagram. We do giveaways on Discord. We do giveaways on Twitch sometimes. So come hang out if you want free shit.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to tune into Anthony's Halo Infinite Insider build streams this weekend. And
I
will
be
later.
streaming the Insider build.
See
ya.
Bye.